Graff is the Patriots writer for The Athletic, and he joins us on the Volkswagen Dealers Expert Hotline. He was down at the Senior Bowl. Mr. Graff, hello, sir.
Hello, gentlemen. What's going on?
Hey, Chad.
Hey, Chad. There's the Patriots have the third pick in the draft. There's talk of do they take a quarterback there, or do they take a guy like Marvin Harrison and then wait till the second round, the top of the second round, to take their quarterback? And when you read the Senior Bowl, you got a chance to see some of those guys play that would be, guys that were available in the second round. What were your thoughts?
I mean, I think my biggest takeaway after a week in Mobile, Alabama, among, Mobile, Alabama takeaways, would be that there are so many, like the Patriots are lucky a little bit because there are so many good offensive tackles that could be available late first, early second round, a bunch of offensive tackles that could be available early third round where they've got that very early pick in the third round, 68, I think it is. And then there are also so many good wide receivers. So if you're looking at the Patriots and their biggest three needs, I think just about everybody agrees it's got to be quarterback, wide receiver, offensive tackle in whatever order you want to rearrange that. But when you're looking at the draft board, the big thing that stood out to me at the Senior Bowl is there's not really a drastic drop off at offensive tackle. There's not really a drastic drop off at wide receiver. Like, of course, Marvin Harrison is way better than, say, Roman Wilson, the wide receiver who stood out most at the Senior Bowl. But point being, there's a lot of depth at wide receiver. There's a lot of depth at offensive tackle. So at this point, I kind of think, and there's plenty that can change, I kind of think you'd be crazy not to pick a quarterback at number 3, even knowing how good and how much of a sure thing Marvin Harrison Jr. is.
Okay, really? Because I've agreed with that. I'm sorry, I've agreed with that all along. There always is so much value at the wide receiver position, and it doesn't get worse any other year. So you think the drop off between Marvin Harrison and the next 3 best receivers is not that dramatic?
There's definitely a drop off. He is awesome, but it's not crazy. And it's not like there's a cliff where if you don't get one of the first 5 guys, you're screwed. There's 15, 20 guys who are probably going to be impactful players. There's a ton of wide receivers. There's some really good kind of, what you would expect from probably a third round offensive tackle where they're massive. The size is off the charts, but they're going to take some coaching. So you've got options at offensive tackle. You've got options at wide receiver. Of course, taking a quarterback at number 3 is far from a sure thing. Patriots fans for a long time have gotten to watch other teams look foolish by continually striking out there. So yes, I think it's a little bit more high risk, but if you want that high reward, I do think you got to take a quarterback at number 3.
Okay, so Chad, you wrote about the quarterbacks that were there, and obviously, the guys who are going to be there at 3 weren't participating in Mobile, but from the guys that you did see, it seemed like they were maybe not making that strong of a case across the board to move up in the draft.
Yeah, well, I guess I'll put it this way. The 2 quarterbacks everybody was so excited to see at the Senior Bowl were Michael Penix Jr., who we just watched in the playoffs dazzle for Washington against Texas. Super interesting, a guy who's had a bunch of injury concerns. Let's see what he can do. And then his kind of collegiate rival, Bo Nix from Oregon, who put just video game numbers up. And everybody wanted to see what it would look like without Oregon's offensive line and skill position players and the coaching he's gotten. And those 2 kind of disappointed a bit. I mean, Spencer Rattler was the best quarterback there, and he was viewed more as like a 5th round pick kind of guy. So the 5th round pick was there outdueling Penix Jr. and Bo Nix. Now, of course, these are just 3 or 4 practices and then a game. They're playing with wide receivers that they don't really know, an offensive system that they don't really know, which, by the way, was led by Troy Brown, who was one of the offensive coordinators. But the fact that Spencer Rattler was the best quarterback there isn't exactly like a shining sign to me that you cannot miss on Bo Nix. You cannot miss on Michael Penix Jr. There's some uncertainty, with who I think becomes the 4th, 5th, 6th quarterbacks taken in the draft in April.
You mentioned Troy Brown. Kind of interesting. He's been on the coaching staff for the Patriots here for the last few years. I don't know. What is your read? Did you talk to him? What's the deal with him?
So it's this awesome new stadium where all the practices are held. And then right as practice ends, this horn sounds and it comes over the speakerphone. Hey, media is walking on the field. And so usually the coaches and players will kind of hang out a little bit like, ooh, who's going to come talk to me? This is exciting, especially the smaller school guys like New Hampshire's Dylan Lauby. But conversely, you can be at the front of the line like we were trying to be to get down onto the field to go talk to Troy Brown. Say, hey, Troy, what's going on? How are you? Are you going to be back next year? And he was routinely one of the first off the field. So never got a chance to talk to him, but very noteworthy that at this Senior Bowl, all of these, it's coached by NFL position coaches and coordinators. So a lot of different people there, and everybody is repping their team. They want it known like, hey, I'm the Chicago Bears defensive line coach. Come talk to me. Let me help try to woo you to want us to draft you and make a good impression at the combine in a couple months. Troy Brown, on the other hand, was not wearing a Patriots shirt. He was the only one in a tight-fitted Senior Bowl shirt with his, stature popping. But that, interesting sign to me. I think that Troy Brown, it seems, my read on it was that he's probably going to give Alex Van Pelt, the new offensive coordinator, carte blanche to hire what you want. This is your staff, man. Well, I'm coming in and turning over the offense to you. I'm going to be more of a general manager, maybe defensive head coach. So I want to give you a chance to hire who you like and interview Troy Brown if you'd like. Don't interview him if you don't want to, but definitely does not seem like a set thing that Troy Brown is going to be back. And if anything, I'd venture a guess that he probably won't be, despite everything that he did as a player and his last 4 years as a coach.
Roman Wilson was certainly getting a lot of attention. You wrote about him too. It looks like he may have done enough to move himself, not massively up the draft board, but maybe from like a 4th rounder to a 3rd rounder.
Yes, exactly. And that's where I think like the Patriots could be really smart to go quarterback round 1, offensive tackle round 2, get somebody who you can hopefully plug and play, since we don't really know if Onwenu or Trent Brown are going to be back, or even if the Patriots want them back. And then there is just so much depth at wide receiver that you can get a guy like him who apparently runs like a 4.3 40, crazy 3 cone. So going down there, of course, you've heard everything about his athleticism. And my concern, admittedly, going down there was like, okay, well, we've seen this before. Tyquan Thornton is also a great track athlete. There's something different from being a track athlete to actually being a really good wide receiver. And so I think it was refreshing and perhaps a way for Patriots fans to take a deep breath when looking at this guy and say, okay, he is a polished route runner. He can catch the ball. There's a lot more to this guy than just speed. And that's why I think that the Patriots, even though wide receiver is a glaring need, might be okay to target that in free agency and then wait all the way to the 3rd round in the draft to try to improve their wide receiver position.
All right. Well, what did you think of Stevie Belichick getting the job in Washington? Is this the defensive coordinator job in Washington? Is this good for him?
I think so. I'm a little bit surprised only in that it's going to the college level. Like you talk to all of these coaches that come up from college, as we just saw with Boston College, and everybody gets to the NFL, where for years you heard stories about sleeping in your office and you cannot believe the hours. And then they get to the NFL and they exhale like, oh my God, this is great. Like I can go on vacation in early July. This is incredible. I've never had this much time off. So it's interesting to me in that sense, in that he's now going to a recruiting world and is going to have to be in the living rooms of, the great linebackers of Seattle and Portland and Los Angeles and whatever. So interesting to me. I'm a little bit surprised that he didn't decide to stay in the NFL, which he knows so well. But I'm also fascinated to hear what recruits say of his recruiting pitch. I think he's got a little more personality than his dad. I think it could work out well. And if nothing else, if he needs a FaceTime with his dad to close the deal on some 5-star cornerback, I think that could probably have a swaying effect on some kids.
Chad, was there an NFL job waiting for him? It is curious that he went back to the college game. I'm wondering if he was reading the room and decided that if he wanted to continue working, he had to go to college.
There definitely was with the Patriots, and I think that he could have gotten some job with the with a team in the NFL. I don't think it would have been defensive coordinator, play caller, which he wanted, and I don't think that's what it would have been with the Patriots either. So perhaps he looked at it and said, "Look, I'm not here just to go show that I can be a good linebackers coach for X NFC team or whatever. I think he still wants to call plays and have a big say in things, and on Fish's stash, he's going to be able to run the defense. And now that recruiting question is going to be so funny to me because I could see it either way. I could see him being awesome and flexing 6 rings and the connections that he has and turning that into an awesome thing to be an incredible recruiter. But also, I would say his dad didn't exactly have the track record of the most personable guy and the guy who was going to woo you and sweep you off your feet, kind of like you need in college football. So I'll be fascinated to see what Steve Belichick, the recruiter, is like.
All right, Chad Graff. Good stuff. Read him on The Athletic. He's working hard. He was at the Senior Bowl, which is really just a party for these guys. Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. They're doing half court, half field. They're at midfield throwing the thing around. Who cares? All right, Chad, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it.
It's a party on and off the field. All right, thanks, guys.
All right, we appreciate it.